Hello everybody, I'm Lorenzo Marchessi and I'm here right at the beginning of this video we're about to watch to remind you to subscribe to my channel. It's very helpful if you do, and also please tell your friends, your family members, and share it if you can. Love to hear your comments and feedback, but just want to make sure you subscribe. Thanks for watching and we'll see you soon. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Geek Authority Show. I'm your host, Lorenzo Marchessi, and this is the show where I get to interview all kinds of wonderful people, producers, writers, actors, cosplayers, musicians, all kinds of authors that I've spoken to, production companies. And today I have an extra special guest. He's really intensely involved with Theater West Theater Company here in Los Angeles, California. This is Michael Van Duzer. Michael, thank you so much for doing this with me, and I'm so excited to hear about all the projects you're doing.
Great. It's a pleasure. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
So, okay, I always start at the beginning, way back when. Let's set the time machine backwards. Are you a native Californian?
Not quite, but I did grow up here. My father was in the Marine Corps. And so we moved to Southern California when I was about a year and a half, a little older than that.
So did you travel around a lot? Were you born in a different city, or?
I was born in North Carolina, actually.
Oh, okay. So at what age were you bitten by that theater bug?
I knew this was going to come up, so I've been thinking about it. I've always thought of it connected to my school, which certainly was a large part of it to begin with. I was I don't know how talented a voice soprano I was. I certainly thought I was. I definitely was loud, and so that got me parts immediately. But I was remembering something that my mother got me involved in. It certainly, I was way too young to have chosen it for myself. But, I had been, listening to the cast albums my parents had and everything. So maybe she, I don't know. It was a strange thing where I played Mercury to Respighi's The Fountains of Rome. I traipsed around and brought all these other statues to life, and then, just kind of sat there and watched them dance. They were older. I have very vague memory of that.
What age was this? What age?
I was probably 5 or 6. I was really small. I mean, that was the whole idea, that I was tiny enough to paint white and go around and bring all these other statues to life. I have no recollection of the rest of the show. I know there must have been more than just this moment, but that's all I know.
So did you get into high school and then actually get on a couple productions, or?
Well, by high school, I already thought, I was heading for a life in the theater. I was probably the best fed Oliver that has been in grammar school. And I also played Louis Leonowen's Anna's Son in The King and I, when the same school did that. In high school, I went to Catholic school for 12 years. So the school I started out at was the Academy of the Little Flower of St. Teresa, actually.
Wow. You grew up around nuns.
Oh, yes, indeed.
Me too.
But Yeah, we moved from Oceanside to Carlsbad when I went into 5th grade. So then I transferred to St. Patrick's. But I also, there was no Catholic high school in the area. There was a girls' Catholic high school, actually the academy that I went to for grade school, but they didn't have boys in the high school part of it. So I did some shows with them as well as a couple down in San Diego where I went to Catholic high school at University High. So I did my first of many Linuses in You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. By, I guess, maybe the third or fourth audition, I just showed up with my blanket. Because I had curly hair and a round face, everybody always said, no, you should read for Charlie Brown. I'm like, well, I'll read it for it, but you're going to cast me as Linus, which
Wow.
they always did.
So how many productions of that did you say? 3 or 4?
I did, well, one reopened, so 6 or 7, depending on how you count it.
Did you go on to college and pursue the theater aspect, or?
I did. I was at USC
Hmm.
back in the days when scholarships were actually real. And so I was very lucky. And worked with a number of people who continued in the LA theater area or was at school at the same time. Michael McKetty and Tim Dang were both at USC at the same time as I was. So
Were your parents encouraging about this? Did
not
they
especially, but they also didn't try and stop me, in any forcible
did,
kind of way.
did you have a backup career? Was that the
No, I honestly didn't. I played perhaps too much by the seat of my pants at that age. However, I've had rheumatoid arthritis actually since I was 9. So by the time I finished college, 2 things that happened. One, I realized that acting wise, in those days, someone with a disability would not have been cast in anything. We're talking about the early 80s. And so I realized also that I was more interested in writing and directing,
oh
where I felt I had a little more control. Plus, I don't think I ever had the get up and go spirit to really be an actor, in that sense. Um,
did you do a lot
so
of musical theater though? I mean, were you on stage a lot?
yeah, I mean, I did a lot of musical theater. I also did a couple of seasons. There was a community theater down in my area in Vista, California at that time that did 3 Gilbert and Sullivan
Oh,
operas every summer. So I did some chorus parts and then worked up to leads, playing Nanki Poo and the Duke of Plaza Toro. And so, that was great fun. And I'm, really
did, did you
played to,
did you ever do Pirates of Penzance?
I did do Pirates, yes.
What role?
I did the Major General at one point, not at that theater. At that theater, I was in the chorus.
Okay.
Mm.
Well, Major General, that's a tongue twister.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, all those patter roles are, but
Oh yeah.
that's the fun of them, and you know, they're very fun, silly, wordy. It's something I've taken into my own writing. I'm very focused on the language, and usually there's a style to it. We can talk about that as the production sort of roll by. But yeah, when I got out of college, almost immediately, I saw an audition for what was the first production done by Celebration Theater. So I did audition for that and got cast in that. It was a, you know, this, once again, we're talking the early 80s, there weren't a lot of gay themed plays for people to choose from. This was a British play called As Time Goes By, which was really three short historical pieces, starting with the Oscar Wilde era and ending up at Stonewall.
Wow.
So
And Celebration Theater, that's the theater that's, for those who don't know watching, that's a theater company that I guess developed in West Hollywood for what we would now call the LGBTQ community, um, and pretty much blossomed. I've seen several productions there, and you were there at the beginning, right? You just said one of the first shows.
yeah, I was in the very first show. At that time, it was performed in what was called the National Gay Archives, which was on Hudson, just south of Hollywood, so in the heart of Hollywood, basically. Jim Kepner ran those archives. He'd spent a life collecting, and Chuck Rowland was the real, impetus for Celebration Theater. It was his baby. He was also one of the original members of the Mattachine Society with Harry Hay and several others. Of course, all those original members were pushed out of the organization for being communists. And so, he moved on to teaching and then came back to Los Angeles and wanted to start this theater for LGBT, you know, uh, causes, audiences. Um, you know, at that time, certainly it was, you know, uh, not as easy in a lot of ways. Getting people to audition, it was very scary for people.
Right.
Perhaps even scarier for gay people than it was for straight people to, stretch themselves in these roles. There wasn't as much literature. I mean, people still thought of things like Tea and Sympathy as, a gay play at that point. There wasn't the wealth of literature that we have now, the number of people writing those stories.
Very cool. There's a lot of history in the theater as well. So,
Yeah, yeah.
would you say, you said right now, I mean, right now in this current wonderful world of pandemic, you're pretty much like writing, producing, and directing projects, right? Have you stepped away from the acting?
Um, I had stepped away from the acting for most of this time. I will say there have been a couple of original plays of mine that I replaced someone if the show, extended and they couldn't do the role. There was one show I think we're going to talk about, Hopeful Romantic, which we did one production of, starting at Celebration Theater, but 2 years later, we did a revival of it as well, where I did go into the cast for that. And then, there have been a couple of little things along the way like that. But
I got to ask you, what's that like? You're performing your own production. Do you, when you're doing it, do you kind of, do you stick to the text, or on some occasions you kind of, because I mean you're the author, you're the only one who can change anything technically.
Technically, yes. Plenty of people have changed things, not always to my happiness, but no, I pretty much would stick to the text. I'm very careful, as I said, about my words. The language is extremely important, and I found that most actors, when they do my pieces, they're challenged by the language. There's
When
one
you say
guy.
challenge, when you say challenged by the language, are you talking about the words are just too, uh, I don't know what the word is, big, or it doesn't make sense to them, or what is it?
I do use a lot of multisyllable words. I don't. I use what I think is the perfect word, but it's not always the easiest word. I expect my audience to expand themselves a little bit, I guess. I don't make it completely easy for them. At the same time, there's a lot of humor in most of my plays. So,
Humor's
that's
good.
for sold. Yeah,
Okay, so I'm curious. Have you let one of your how many plays have you written? Would you say?
not that many really, because and as far as full length plays, um, a handful basically. I Because of the arthritis, I knew that I needed to have a secure job that would give me health. So very soon after I got involved, I was actually for less than a year the first artistic director of Celebration Theater. That was when the theater rented a space on Hoover in Silver Lake, with a bus stop right outside. Uh, it was there for several years, and actually, Hopeful Romantic, which we'll talk about, was the first uh, original production to open the space that they were in for many years on Santa Monica, just east of La Brea. Um, there were a couple of weeks of a show that had opened at the Hoover space that finished out its run there, but we were the first production to open that theater.
I'm
So
curious. I got a question. You as a writer, because I asked how many plays you did. Are you okay with like
yeah,
other companies doing your shows? Does that? I mean, do you have you done that?
that has been. I have had the good fortune to direct the shows, the world premieres of the shows in Los Angeles. But I've had some of my shows. I've not had any New York productions. One of my shows was set to go there, but 9/11 happened, and that company did not survive. Not anything to do
Right.
with that, but just financially, I think that they just never came back from that. At least I never heard from them again, and I never saw the company doing anything. But so yeah, I've had productions in Tucson and Phoenix, Chicago, a number of places. Um, Once again, I did have a full-time job and enjoyed my life, so I didn't push things perhaps as much as I could have. Um,
Meaning
but
pushing your work out there? Is that what you're saying?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. I often, well, it was different with Hope for Romantic, which was the first, big thing I had. I don't know.
Have
Do you
you
want to?
seen Have you seen any of the productions that were put up? Like actually been just the audience member of these shows?
Yes, yes. Most of them I've traveled and gone to see. Uh,
And are you happy with the interpretation?
um,
Be honest. Come on, you're a writer.
I would say, you know, my first experience of it was a production in Tucson, and I remember so vividly sitting in the audience and watching this group do saying my words and doing their thing and under the direction, and they were obviously loving it and having the best time. I was horrified for about 15 minutes.
Uh-oh.
And then I kind of said to myself, if they were doing Tennessee Williams, it would look the same. They're they're doing their best.
Because the reason I asked that question is I've talked to several writers, most of which, take joy, as a matter of fact, in the fact that they've written something and someone else is producing it or whatever, and the interpretations are different, and the, kind of things that you don't expect surprise you or whatever. And then there was a couple that were like, it's like, biting my teeth and my fingernails, and it's like, it's hard because you see it one way as a writer, and then a director interprets it, and the actor interprets it, and then, there's a whole bunch of interpreting going on.
Right.
But hopefully the intent of the play is still there. But that's kind of cool, actually. Is the writing process long for you or difficult, or does it just, you wake up one morning and go, oh, my next play?
No, it's never easy for me. It's never quick because I'm such a stickler about the language. So I'm constantly refining it.
Yeah.
But when I get to the point of wanting to share it with people, even if I know it's not exactly ready, I am pleased enough with it,
Okay.
in whatever sense.
All right, let's switch the conversation to, what do you enjoy about directing? What's the directing side that you like?
Well, the directing side is, actually coming up with these concepts. I've done a lot in classical theater, and I've done some work in opera as well, and
So you've directed Shakespeare?
yes. I was set, actually, we were supposed to do at Theater West a production of Much Ado About Nothing last summer. Obviously, that didn't happen. But what I did do coming from that was, because I'm a nerd about, so many things, I asked if anybody would be interested in, in the Theater West company, in sort of doing a deep dive into the show. In other words, we would just take the text, not cast it per se, just have different people reading every week. And I really wanted to try, I've never been a teacher, but I really wanted to try and create a sort of holistic experience for people, so that they could sit down and we could talk about, how you speak the text. Much Ado is not a play that has as much verse as many others. It has a lot of prose as well. So, but
it's one of his better comedies, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Beatrice and Benedict are terrific. Interestingly, everybody walks away with that, but they're not really the focus or the main couple in the story. In this holistic approach, I wanted to also be able to tell them, here's what a director is doing. These are the decisions a director's making. There's a scene at the beginning of the second act where two characters come on and join two characters. Now, that's indicated in the stage directions, which we're pretty positive Shakespeare didn't write. So this was a choice of some editor somewhere along the line to say that these two characters walk in and, listen to part of this conversation. But they don't speak for a couple of pages. So I said, well, okay, so, look at that situation. What if they don't come in at that point? What if they only come in when they actually speak? What changes there? What suddenly happens if this is just a tete-a-tete as opposed to, two people listening to a conversation that's going on? So those were the kinds of things I wanted the actors to be able to think about. Does this person exit at this point? Or do they hear this last line before they actually exit? It can change a lot.
Wow. I'm curious, what kind of director do you think you are in terms of dealing with the actors? There are some technical directors, there are some actors directors, there are some crazy directors. Where do you How do you see yourself relating to the actors?
I think I'm an actor's director. I started out as a performer. I I know the technical side of things, but once again, I'm only going to use that if it's useful to that particular performer. I, when you work with people in a group, as I've been able to do a couple of times in my life, you get to know how to work with each person. Otherwise, at the beginning of a rehearsal, you are finding out how you
Right.
speak to that character. Are they visual?
I,
Do
I've
they,
right. I found of myself. I've done a little bit of directing that you have to adjust to each, actor's personality. Some people take the comments or criticisms or whatever, and you get all kinds of reactions. And basically, you want to get whatever it is you want to get out of the performance and or the scene and or the text, but communicate it in a way that that particular actor can. I don't want to say handle. Is that a good word? Understands maybe better. Um,
yeah, you have to, and it has happened to me very rarely, but it has happened to me that we just don't speak the same language. You know, that I
connection.
could only get so far with someone because they don't, and I can change my language, but there've been a couple of very tough nuts to crack that I couldn't quite do that
And you're
with.
being nice too, right? Tough
And
enough.
but yeah, it's a delicate little dance, because the other thing is, as a director, you it's not about line readings, but it's about not really forcing your conception on them, but explaining your conception and creating the working space where they will eventually find what you want them to. It's so much better if they feel it's their idea.
Right.
Now, at some point, if you've gotten through a whole rehearsal process and this one thing is not happening, then you have to tell them.
Right. And I don't think a lot of people realize there's a real world famous book called How to Make Friends and Influence People. And that's part of it. If you want to get an idea out there, you make it sound like whoever your superior came up with it is kind of the way to go, because either way you get whatever it is you're looking for.
Right.
Um, but let's talk about Theater West a little bit. How long have you been with Theater West?
Not that long, really. I've been there about 6 years.
That's pretty
Um,
long. That's a good
uh,
theater life. How did
well,
you get involved?
yeah. I guess when you talk about a regular company, but Theater West has been around since 1962. So until fairly recently, there were original members that were still going to workshops all the time.
Right. So
So
how did you get involved? Did you audition? Did you?
no, I ran into a friend when I had a short play running in the Fringe Festival. I ran into a friend who said, you'd be great for this play that we're doing. And it was a play I'd heard of but not read. So I took a look at it and I went, oh, yeah, I could do this. So I pitched for it. They, I don't really know because I wasn't a member of the company. So I don't know if they had members of the company pitching for it that didn't get it. But, I came in with
Do you
my
remember the
ideas
play?
about it.
What was it?
Yeah, it was the musical comedy Murders of 1940.
Very cool.
So, I said I could do it because, I know all those styles. And there were a couple of moments that I went, I'll bet they didn't do it this way, but it would be hysterically funny in this moment if I did this. So those were things enough for me to cling on and say, this is what I could do with this piece. So they did give that to me. And so I directed that. During the rehearsals. They asked me to become a member. I was really more interested in exploring their writing workshop. So I was able to sit in on a couple of those, and this was in the fall, so I joined in January of that
What's
year.
what's your current involvement? How are you? What are you doing with Theater West?
Well, I wear many hats as I have throughout my life. So, someday this production of Much Ado will happen, and I will direct it. And I've been on the board for 4 years now, and no, 5. Yeah, because and so I just moved into chair of the board, which except for running the weekly board meetings, doesn't mean much as far as changing what I do with the theater. I do run the box office as well when we have a box office to run. Um, but
Is that
I
common? Is that common for like the directors to get involved that way? I mean, I have seen Mr. Lloyd Schwartz during
yeah.
the children's theater. He's
Oh
been at the
yes.
box office and he wrote most of that stuff. So I'm like, wow, okay. I mean, does everybody pitches in and does what they can?
Yeah, it's a membership company. You're expected to take part, not necessarily to run something, but certainly to keep things going. We even during the pandemic, we're taking the time to right now sort of look at can we spruce this up. There's a painting thing that's going on, and other things that we're trying to do as improvements while we can't use the theater anyway.
Yeah, and since we're
um,
talking about it, here's the website.
yeah.
Any place that's kind of particular favorite of yours or we should look at?
um, no, I mean, all of these things are worthwhile. We're that's part of the Shakespeare workshop, not the thing I run, but our actual workshop. Theater West was founded as a workshop company, and that's still the heart of the company. So the Actors Workshop was the first workshop, but we have the Writing Workshop. We normally have a musical theater workshop as well. I know you talked with Anthony,
Right?
and he
Can you
runs the
see?
musical theater workshop.
Can you see on the screen? Writers, Marvin Kaplan. What's that? What's the Marvin Kaplan?
The associates program is it's not happening at the moment, but that's our program for young performers. So we actually do bring in teachers for them, and the hope is that they would indeed become members when they finish with the associates program. I'm actually in the middle of revamping that program for when we do reopen. But
Okay.
yeah, so those except for the musical theater, which just is too difficult to do on Zoom.
Right.
All our workshops are running and actually quite vital. We're doing them an hour earlier. Of course, people don't need to leave their homes because they're on Zoom. So, for instance, the writers' workshop, a lot of people, more people than would be coming to the theater necessarily, are coming weekly to that. I'm sure it's the same with my Shakespeare sessions as well, that, although they're not an official workshop, people found it easy to come on a Saturday afternoon for a couple of hours and, get the kind of input I was offering. uh, I was really flattered to find that a lot of the people that had, sort of been the bedrock of those Saturday afternoons, as we were winding up our 8-month look at Much Ado, said, okay, what's our next play? So I said, well,
Very cool.
let's decide. Oh yeah, here we
Okay,
are.
what do
So,
we got here?
so this was that first production, Hopeful Romantic, which was done at Celebration Theater in 1991. It
Are you still in touch with Jack Millis, the director? Miller?
um, On and off. I mean, we're not as close as we were certainly at that time. But yes, I still do speak with him. This is the old style, black and white that we used to do for press. I have to apologize for having very uh, bad. This is one of the few press photos I have outside of the Theater West stuff coming up. So.
What are we looking at here? Is this the same production?
Yes, this is Hopeful Romantic at Celebration. This was the original cast. The show, which was certainly the most autobiographical thing I've ever done, is about someone who is having trouble as he's sort of moving towards into his 30s and still hasn't found a real boyfriend. So his friends are giving him advice at this particular moment, all of them at the same time. But
So is this is a dramedy? This is a dramedy?
no, it was a real romantic comedy, which
Oh.
in 1991, in the gay world, was extremely. I mean, I don't know of any others that were being done at that time. All
Right.
of our all of our dramatic literature at that time was focused on AIDS. I
Right.
very deliberately set out to do a romantic comedy, although it ended optimistically, but the relationship he finds doesn't work. He gets all of the cast except the main character and that boyfriend he finds play multiple roles. So in another scene, this is just a rehearsal shot I took of the main character Alan and
Who are the actors?
um, uh, that is Todd Hansen on my right, and Jim Phipps on the left.
Okay.
So
I mean, if people watching this is screen right, screen left, is what you're saying, right?
yes, screen right and left. Yes.
Okay.
So Jim, you saw in the earlier photo with the others. So he's the main character. Oscar Wilde and Alexander the Great give him dating advice. It was a very fun comedy. I did try that. That was one that I did really push at that point, trying to get it out to other theaters. But Jeffrey opened the year after this and sort of took it. It stylistically, it looked very similar. One main character, all of the other characters playing, different characters in his life, about a relationship. It did still have AIDS in it, where mine didn't, but Paul Rudnick certainly was a bigger name than me, and so that's the play people chose to do. I guess just bad timing. Double Dealer was one of the classical pieces I did. This is actually a restoration piece. It's very rarely done. It's a Congreve piece, and I was very happy with that production that we did at the Globe. Before that, I'd done productions of As You Like It and Marlowe's Edward II, also at the Globe. But this was done by the company that did the revival of Hope for Romantic. Yeah, Audrey Tales was another popular play for me. I wrote two pieces, one which has never been done since the original production. The main thing I was writing was posing strap pirates, which you can sort of get from the poster here.
Quite colorful.
Yes, it was a satire on books that existed a little bit before my time, but that I'd found copies, old copies of, and these were sort of the naughty paperbacks that were written in the late 50s, early 60s. Very flowery language, usually plot stolen from a B film, and lots of moralizing about people were tortured by their feelings for other men, but then they thought of the ancient Greeks, and they, tried to, sort of come up with, it was its own style, and as I say, it was way over the top. This was actually a replacement cast when we moved from the Hudson back to Celebration Theater. We did lose a couple of people. You can actually see me in the very background there. I'm behind everybody. I
Right here?
Yeah, that's me. I
Okay.
wound up being in the this revival because the earlier piece there wasn't the guy who replaced the captain in this version of it couldn't really do the first piece. The first piece I loved, but it was a bit too esoteric, I guess, for most audiences. It was the story of Tchaikovsky if he'd married Blanche Dubois. And I thought it was hilarious, but audiences were really waiting for this.
Ooh,
And
hello.
yeah, I mean, it was
Tawdry is not the word I would use.
but I have to tell you, because it was so over the top and hilarious, with all of this flowery language everywhere, and of course much made of pirate booty. I mean, this is the captain trying to seduce the virginal young toy buck.
Yeah,
The
I mean
captain is
the image alone. I mean, how often does an actor get to snuggle up to a man's crotch wearing a thong, basically? Uh,
Yes, well, that's one of those posing straps, and we had them specially made for the production. But yeah, the pirate ship was the Cutlass Supreme, and as I say, the young virginal hero was Toy Buck. That's toy with an E at the end of it. Rake Matelot is the sex-starved captain. We had other sailors, Saber and Toy finally finds Beau Ideal, his real love match, on the ship, and they turn the tables on the captain and are able to escape his clutches. I've worked for about 30 years with a group called the Opera Buffs. It's a really wonderful program where they do, for many years, we did, concert productions of scenes. And so very simple, but I'd be working with young singers, at the
are,
beginning of their careers.
are you in here somewhere? No.
I'm not in here, no. This was our last concert opera. We've moved up to concert operas with a full orchestra, as you can see. I do some staging and work with the singers, trying to be as clever as possible. That last one was Cenerentola, which was our last production. This was the very first concert opera we did. This is Carmen. What I was able to do on this, it's a very short final act. So I was able to talk the performers into dropping their music stands and memorizing this scene. So I was able to fully stage this last scene where Don Jose kills Carmen. But the really great thing about this organization is that they raise money for young singers, even more than actors who, of course, are going to voice lessons and acting lessons and all of that. The
Do you,
singers need their music lessons, but they also need to learn how to speak languages.
do you know their website? You want to mention their website?
Sure, it's operabuffs.org, O-R-G.
Check them out. Yeah.
Yeah, please check them out. They're a great company. This is, and I guess we can screen share this since that graphic was coming up when I shared it. No, now it's not coming up.
We've been having technical difficulties today.
Yeah, I don't know what the issue is with that. But
Okay.
in any
So
case,
what is this? This is
this is The Man Who Saved Everything, which was a world premiere I directed at Theater West.
he doesn't
Something
look
I'm
happy.
No, it's not. It was very, very different from what I usually do. I'm not saying that I didn't find a couple of places for a smile in it, but it was very intense. It's a story of what would normally be called a hoarder. We called him a collector, and his very extensive collection lived on stage. This is him with his mother, but it all takes place in his mind. It's not a show that follows a linear structure.
Did you say
Uh,
it takes place in his mind?
yes,
So is the
he's
character sleeping and we find out at the end? Or what's going on?
there is kind of a book ending that I worked with the writer on when I originally was seeing scenes of this in our writers' workshop. I was interested in it. But when I read the original script that was accepted for production, I when I pitched to direct it, I was very forthright. I said, um, the end you have isn't the real end to the play you've written. And of course, he could have written me off at that point. But I explained myself. We talked about it, and we were able to come up with a more ambiguous ending that I think was truer. And I think Ben would agree with me. Ben Sculia wrote the play, and so we worked very closely on creating this. And we had a great cast that threw themselves into this very difficult work. I did. I think it's fair to say I sort of expanded the surrealism that I found in it. Um, I felt that the collection, all of these items that were on stage, had to live in some way because they were living for him. And Ben's script had hints of that by having these ghostly figures sort of walking through at times. But I decided to make that actually real by creating two characters that embodied the collection. They had no lines, but they were part of the collection. They would be in it. They would move things, clean things up. Sometimes they would hand something to a character. Sometimes they were in the scene in that sort of sense. This is our what would have been our well, it wouldn't have been our last production if the pandemic hadn't come along. But you can see that our opening was March 13th. We actually did two previews of this show, and decided to close before everything else closed down around us. We were just trying to play it as safe as possible. So the set is still sitting on our stage, and
Who are you playing? What character?
I actually, yes, this is my long unawaited return to performance. Um,
Oh,
the this is a very clever and funny black comedy about the assassination um, of Allende in Chile in 1973. And so it's really a CIA situation. So the main characters are these characters that are dealing with these situations. Um, Steve Neville and I have cameos where we appear as Nixon and Kissinger. So I play Kissinger, and Steve
I want
plays
to see that. I got to
a
see that.
wonderful Nixon. Yeah, it is terrific. Yeah, that's me. Um, a few
That's
pounds
you.
lighter, but and a few years younger.
Okay.
Um,
And it's funny you say that because ta-da, where are you? There you are. Ta-da. And there's your show.
yes, I'm
Ta-da.
just over your shoulder, right?
And there you go. And there's his name and his Theater West. Okay. So this is kind of very enlightening for me, but I'll tell you what, a lot of people watch and I get comments often enough that say somebody, be it a young person or somebody who's got a regular day job, is considering doing acting or writing or directing. What words of wisdom in this world, the pandemic world, hopefully, once everything settles, we'll get back to normal. What advice would you give? What words of wisdom?
Well, I mean,
Don't
you
don't say don't do it because I've had people say it.
know, people, I think, go into this knowing that that things are against them as far as being able to, very, there are a limited number of all of these types of jobs in entertainment, and they're very sought after. I think pretty much anybody who's going to go into this is smart enough to know that the odds are against them. But if that's where your heart is, then that's what you want to explore. But um, for me anyway. I like a smart actor. If acting is really what you want to do, but in a sense, you have to be, if not smarter as a director or a writer, you still have to be several steps ahead of the actors in any given situation. So open yourself to everything. While this pandemic has been going on, the ability to see, shows from Stratford, from the National Theater. I mean, I know a lot of them played in the movie theaters, and you might have bought them, but to be able to see them for a small donation or something, to see companies that you've never been able to, explore everything. If it's uncomfortable, um, find out why somebody thought it was important to do it later. Read up on these things. Continue to grow and expand yourself, whether that's a new acting class, whether that's I've watched, not in my Shakespeare sessions, but in our regular Shakespeare workshop, I've seen people who are middle-aged and have always just had this fear of Shakespeare. And our
And
moderator,
that fear is what, the language? Because it's obviously not easy to speak.
yeah, I'm sure that's part of it. I'm sure they, are selling themselves short or something along the way. I'm sure they figure, I don't know how to sit down and work this out for myself. There are a
Right.
lot of things that
What about having a little bit of a thick skin? Because the whole auditioning process, and you're going to get rejected more than accepted, kind of situation. What advice do you give to an actor who's like, I've been on 10 auditions and nobody's calling me back and that kind of thing?
Well, once again, I mean, you can turn to expanding yourself as a performer. You can try and get some feedback from, what they saw. Uh, you know, the the truth is, when you sit on that other side of the table, on the
Casting,
other
you
side of
mean,
that
directing?
casting table, it's um, you're looking for some very specific things. Um, we'll have to see also when we come back from this, because the pandemic, of course, has really come at the same time as this cry for you know uh, access for BIPOC performers and others within the entertainment industry. So we'll have to see if some of those people who have felt marginalized in the past are actually able to be, more clearly seen by the people on the other side of the table. Certainly, everybody's enjoying Bridgerton, so
The
maybe
Crown, all kinds of things,
but where they are playing with different um, different ways to look at race and other protected groups. So
Do you feel
well,
do you feel actors like when you're casting, and even as an actor if you're auditioning, you feel that sometimes people are better auditioners than actors, and vice versa? Some of these auditions are really bad. They actually they're really good actors. Do you find that at all?
that does happen. Of course, yes, there are people, and I was probably one of them, that could pick something up very quickly, make a couple of strong choices, and go in, and it may not be anything they're looking for, but it's not a mealy mouthed choice. So
And you do that to get noticed and hopefully remembered, right?
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, that's your first audition. If you're making it callbacks, then somebody's going to be working with you more closely and they'll get a better idea of that.
Right, and maybe give you more of the character, so you have more.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But so hopefully, if all you can do is make that choice and not any other, as somebody's working with you, they'll figure that out, so they don't wind up with somebody who's a spectacular auditioner, but doesn't get much further than that. The other is more difficult, because you know this person may come in with a presence that you feel is right for the part, but for whatever reason, something's getting in the way of them being, really seen as that character in their audition. That's a problem for an actor, and that's something that they need to work on. If that's the feedback they're getting.
Right. Real quick before we say goodbye, I do this to all of my guests and kind of pick their brains a little. I do a little fast round questions. So I'm going to ask you a couple of quick questions, theater related kind of thing. What would you say is your favorite musical, past or present?
Oh God.
Because you mentioned
Um,
Gilbert and Sullivan, and you mentioned a couple other classic plays. So where's your musical theater at? Your favorite?
I would probably say, at least today, Little Night Music.
Oh, nice.
It speaks to me in many ways, both musically and story wise. The you know the shift of moods, the different couples.
How
Um, but it's really difficult for me to choose that. There are so many I love.
Absolutely. How about your favorite Shakespeare? You can say Much Ado About Nothing if you want.
No, I don't think it would be that actually. Although, when you do this kind of deep study on something, then you certainly uh, um, gain much more respect for everything that he's done in that. I If I were going to perform something, it would be Richard III. For simple beauty, I would probably go with Richard II. And
Wow.
that's not at all. I came to the I came to the history plays late. In my appreciation of Shakespeare. But
How about your favorite comedy? This should be interesting. Just straight out comedy.
that would probably be Twelfth Night.
Really? Okay.
Oh, you mean
in
comedy
general,
or
in general.
Shakespeare or?
Yeah, in general.
Oh, Importance of Being Earnest.
That is fun. How about your favorite drama? And I just recently saw a production of when theaters opened, 12 Angry Men, and I forgot how good that was
Yeah.
as far as a drama.
No,
So,
there are so many, and it's interesting. Um, there are lots of great dramas, but I would probably go with a great drama that surprised me. For instance, so many people have chosen Death of a Salesman, and I read it and it never spoke to me. I'd seen a couple of productions that also I was like, well, I guess it was just the times. Then I saw the Broadway production with Brian Dennehy, and the scene with Biff. At the end of the first act, I was going, "Oh, this really is a good play. I'm getting this now." The scene with Biff started, and I suddenly realized I had tears running down my face. I thought,
it's that good.
oh. And I walked out of the theater. It was a matinee, and I was meeting somebody for dinner and seeing another show off Broadway that evening. And I was still, I wasn't sobbing, but I still had tears running down my face when I got on the subway.
Wow.
I've never experienced anything like that, and I would not call that my favorite drama. That would probably be Angels in America.
Very good.
But uh, but that's a show that also surprises you.
Exactly. Yeah, and any of these shows you mentioned are an amazing, works of theater to see. And a lot of people are kind of questioning, is this my kind of cup of tea? Give these classics a chance. Give Shakespeare a chance. Give new stuff a chance too, because sometimes you're pleasantly surprised about something you've never heard of before. So
right,
that's always good. But Michael, I got to say, this has been very enlightening and engaging and educational and fun. And I tell you, Theater West has got some great people involved. Obviously, you've got some of your own personal productions that you've seen produced and obviously enjoy doing. And you're kind of dabbling still in the acting, which is good, I think. Do you?
I've sort of come back to that, and it's fun. The thing is, I know what I can do.
Right. And
as
of
far
course,
as
you're an experienced director, so obviously you do know what you're doing. Because it helps to know both sides of the coin, and the more well-rounded you are, if you're looking to go into the business, the better off, the more hats you wear, the better you are to find something that might, be a career for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but as an actor, I'm very technical. I'm not that emotionally connected in that sense. So
right.
I wouldn't do a William Inge play or something like that as a performer, because That's just not what I do.
Right. Okay. Well, listen, I want to thank you so much for doing the show. This is the Geek Authority Show. I'm your host, Lorenzo Marchessi. Just if you haven't done it yet, please subscribe. Somewhere on the screen with the both of us, there's a button that you push and subscribe. Click the little bell. What the bell does is send you an email when something is dropped on my channel and the Geek Authority channel, and you can watch it whenever you have the time to do that. Keep an eye on my other shows. I have the Geek Authority's Mysterious Chamber of Collectibles, where I pull out from my closet under my bed the things that I've been collecting for some years, and there's quite a nostalgic stuff there. I also have the Unboxing, the Geek Authority, where I open up stuff for the first time. Manufacturers send me things, and you and I see them for the first time. It was real big at Christmas. I got a lot of stuff, so some of the older shows are really cool to see. I also have the Geek Authority's Reviews, Opinions, and Commentary, where I comment on various shows or things that are going on in the world in terms of entertainment, TV shows, movies, that kind of thing. I have the TGA's Talk About show, where I've interviewed with my family and friends and people around me that have talked about, again, things like Space 1999 from the classic 70s series to the new current series, Cobra Kai, and even a 3-part session on Disneyland and California Adventure closing because of the pandemic, and got real emotional, which is why it ended up being 3 parts. And then there's my brand new show, which I've just recently launched, called Making Entertainment, where I'm talking to actual production crews, actors, writers, directors, performers, technical people on the same screen about a project they're working on to be either produced for Zoom or on stage when the world opens up again. So there's a lot to see. Once again, Michael, I don't know how much to thank you, how many more times I can thank you. This was
It's a pleasure.
I hope you had a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about myself, what could be better?
Hello, and there he is. There's the website, Theater West. But let's say bye, everybody. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.